Okay, how you guys doing? Uh-oh. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Let's see. So we have uh it's okay. And then Chloe is here. Uh, okay, let's go ahead and start. uh what I would like to do first is look at Project One. So we're gonna do a brief review of Project One and but just the ones that are have been submitted. There's maybe one or two that haven't submitted their projects yet, so we can't look at those. We'll look at them briefly, and if you want more feedback than what we do on the review, then simply just get in touch with me and we can go over it. And it's not an imposition. I actually like it. I like to spend the extra time and go over little details that maybe you didn't get in the review. But I can't go over every little detail during the review because then the review would last 4 hours. So I try to make it as um, brief but efficient as possible. And let's go ahead and take a look. So if you don't mind, why don't you guys turn on your cameras just so that I know you're there. You don't have to keep them on the whole class, but it's always weird talking to a bunch of boxes. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Yeah, if you don't want to show your face, just point the camera to the ceiling and put your finger out there. That's fine. That's fine with me too. There you go. Thanks, Jess. That's exactly that's a good way to do it. All right. By the way, any sports fans? Dodgers? No? Okay. It was yesterday was wild. Yesterday was wild. All right. Let's take a look and oh, I need to share a screen. And all right, can you guys see that okay? And you can hear me okay. Okay, great. Perfect. So I was looking at these earlier and last night a little bit, and for the most part, they look really good. And I'm always kind of impressed when you guys are able to do this at home and without direct guidance. And um, a, a few of the things do kind of drop out. Like I, for some reason online, I'm not able to like express how much volume is important for these projects. But for the most part, you guys did uh, pretty well. All right, this is Nayeli's. Excuse me. All right, first of all, this is a nice design. There's contrasts, there's curved lines, there's straight lines, there's organic shapes, there's geometric shapes, it's busy over here, and it has this kind of open, comfortable space here. And from what I can tell, craftsmanship is okay. There's a few snags, but for the most part, that's acceptable. The one thing I might add to this is a little bit of there's volume, but that's kind of hidden under there. And probably in terms of volume, the best part is right here when you have all these things stacked and you can really see the depth of the project. And that's important because remember what we're trying to do is go from 2D to 3D. So there are parts of this, if I'm looking straight down, that they're definitely 3D, but they could be even more 3D if you sort of enhanced it by stacking and making volumetric, blocky, chunky sort of forms. And I'll see if I can show you that. But that's a good design. It has flow, it has balance, it has continuance. Most of the contrasts are there. If I were to add one more contrast, I might make some pieces that are super tiny to contrast with the kind of medium pieces and the large pieces. But otherwise, this is nice. And I'm not sure if I asked you guys to title these or not, or maybe that was just a suggestion, but that's something you can kind of go back and do. Um, in other words, if you did work and it sort of like reminded you of a story or a moment or a person or just some sort of aesthetic, if you're able to go back and title it, then it adds another layer of narrative, and that always helps, and it's a good exercise. Okay, so good start. This is April's. Okay, one thing I like right off the bat is that it looks like you use the negative uh, shapes from the circles, and what that does is it immediately draws the the composition together. So in other words, our eyes, our human eyes, will want to like fill in the circles with the circles that you cut out, right? Um, One thing about so what that does is it draws the composition together. I think maybe what I would have done in this case, instead of having that circle directly in the middle, I think I would have moved it off to the right a little bit. And I also am noticing that that's not a perfect square that looks like a rectangle. And what that does sometimes is it gives you extra work, right? So you have to figure out more space to deal with. And if you were to like cut this right here, that would sort of move this to the right of the composition. And then you could take these blocks, which are necessary in this piece. So the volume, most of the volume is sort of coming from these blocks here. So what I might do is I might make this square, make the circle kind of to the right of the composition, and then move a couple of these blocks in over here just to add volume. But this also has, if you look at that one versus this one, um, this has a separate feel. Like this one seems bubbly and kind of loose, right? And there's good contrast, right? There's round shapes. These negative cutouts end up being organic. So you have organic versus geometric. You have straight lines and curved lines. You have, in this particular case, I really like the open spaces that are left here. But I think, yeah, I think trimming this down and then moving these guys over is the play here. All right, another good one. Marcel. Okay, so these are all good designs. This one is so easy breezy and comfortable to look at, and it has flow, it has balance, and it has these. Sorry, I just sprayed something on my screen. It has this uh, very kind of comfortable flow to it. You know, it kind of flows easily and across, and it has almost like a counterflow, like it's coming through this way, but then it's also coming across like this. The balance is interesting. Uh, I might feel like the upper right is a wee bit heavier, and the reason being is because any volume, or most of the volume, or the most obvious volume, is this piece here. And what that does is it kind of weighs this side down. This would have been easy. This is not would have been. This could be an easy balance to correct if you took just a little square and then just put a tiny bit like here, right on the left hand edge. Um, it would draw your eye. So you'd have repetition of rectangular shapes without, you know, I think what the mistake might be is just putting a square in here to get it to balance, but you could put it at the very edge so it has continuance and also draws your eyes back and forth. And it could be a big blocky chunk that adds volume. So again, this one it's a beautiful design. It does need a little, I think you could have maxed out the volume a little more. Look, there's a piece right there. You just add it right here. All right. And those are good cuts. Okay. You know, it's so interesting because for some reason, all of your designs feel like, I don't know how to put it. It feels like you were paying attention. And I do the exact same lectures at the other schools. And for whatever reason, the designs didn't come out as well. Um, anyway, thank you. This is really nice. I like this one. Oh, and there's a title. Are similar differences? Perfect. Uh, One of the things about starting with a title is that you have this sort of, it gives you like an internal mindset within the project, right? So as you put the pieces together, the narrative can sort of inform what the shapes look like and the relationships between the shapes, right? And in this case, if if you use the word hour, that indicates that there's two people or more people that are being like discussed in the conversation. So when you know that, you start to look and you look for clues. And as the viewer, not the creator, as the viewer, that's kind of the fun part, right? You get to like see, you get to make out shapes and kind of determine like, oh, who is the hour and what are the differences here, right? So it all works together. I see plenty of volume. All the contrasts are there. There's continuance. I think this balances out really well. These big blocky chunks versus the activity over here kind of balances out. Uh, um, Looks like craftsmanship wise, it's okay. It could be a little better, but it's not bad. If there's one thing I would have, excuse me, considered is there is open space, but I think just a tiny bit more open space would help this out. And my favorite part of this one is this organic shape and just the geometric that just lays right over the top there. That contrast really works in all types of design, right? So not just like white on white foam board, but if you're doing interior design and you have, you know, kind of an organic flowing space and you put something geometric in there, or vice versa, that would, the opposite would happen more. You have a geometric space, and if you put something in there that's organic, the contrast comes through right away. All right. A little bit, I don't know if you guys know SoFi Stadium, right? Okay, so SoFi has this big sort of organic, like swooping, curvy roof to it, and if you look kind of around in the buildings and the structures that are inside, a lot of them are geometric, and it makes for a really nice contrast. All right, let's keep going. Okay, this is all right. So Leon's is, first of all, I see volume, so that's good, and um, so the aesthetic here um, doesn't bother me. So in other words, if I look at if I think about a Cy Twombly painting, there is this sort of like disjuncture on purpose. And so this kind of reminds me of that. So this is another project that is rectangle, and you could have saved yourself a lot of work here. So if it's, this one's almost double size, it's almost like you had to do like two projects here. What I would have done is I would have sliced it off right here, and then the volumetric pieces you can add to. So when you have similar size pieces and they're kind of these are all like, if you look at that piece, that piece, that piece, that piece, that piece, they all contrast with each other except for one thing. They're kind of the same size. So in a composition like this, if you have similar size pieces, there is space in between, but what I would do is I would group them a little bit closer together so you could see the contrast better, and then leave some open space. And there is volume here, but there should be volume kind of throughout the composition. Um, all right. Basically, there's two projects here. You can split it down the middle, and you know, this could be a project, this could be a project. Okay, this is good. All right, this is what I was looking for. This is an organic piece with a nice amount of volume. You could even go two more layers. I don't know how many layers are here, but this little area is what I was looking for in terms of volume. All right, Angel. Okay, so here's something about if your project is simple, in other words, you only have a few shapes here. First of all, it's a risk to go beyond the border like that. And in the case where, you know, students do this, I start to look at it, I have to look at it a different way. Design wise, there's some problems here, but if I'm looking at this in terms of sculpture or art, and kind of disobeying what the rules are, then I can kind of look at this in a different way. So what I'm first of all looking at is volume, right? Is there mass and volume here? And the answer is yes. That's a giant block of mass. And this definitely goes from 2D to 3D. I don't remember the sketches, but I don't remember the pieces going off the edge like that. So that's a risk, and in this case, I don't think it worked quite right, but that's a nice block of volume to start from. Then what I would do is on this side, I would have a bunch of contrasting shapes. So you have, um, if you have a big round shape here, what you might have is a bunch of little blocks, little cubes, just sort of like that, all over here to balance the shape. And then I think uh, it would kind of integrate a little bit better. You'd have this contrast from left to right. Okay, let's see here. All right, so this, I'm looking, okay, so there's two layers. So this is two layers, and what I think should be happening is if you have all this activity and actually volume on this side, I think what I would do is make this piece super blocky and super chunky so that physically and visually it gets heavier on this side. And in this case, what happens is all the activity is kind of like if I draw a line in the horizon, most of the activity is at this bottom half, and like this relationship right here, just by itself, is visually heavy enough to kind of weight the visual impact into the corner. So I think what I would do is some of these I would move out from this area and I would just add them onto this side. And that would do two things. It would balance it out and then it would open the space in the middle. And the craftsmanship looks pretty good. It looks like maybe there's some snags, but that's acceptable. I think this one, I would just work on the balance a little bit, but there's some really nice relationships like that. That works. The end of a triangle here, this works, this works. There's a lot of things going for this. I think it just needs to balance. Like those are good cuts. All right. All right. So this one, it looks like sound to me. Like it looks like, which is, it's a good thing because it's non-figurative. There's no musical notes, there's nothing obviously related to music. But because of the repetition, it feels like it has this rhythm that's similar to music, right? So I could easily see this as like an album cover. Um, for what artist, I'm not sure. I have to think about that one. But maybe like a pop. I don't know. I'll think about that some other time. So this one has repetition, and what that does is it draws your eye all the way across, right? And so you're looking at this whole thing in total, and one of the side benefits of that is when you have repetition all the way across, it integrates the whole project together, right? So this also kind of has this, it's sort of a, it's not sneaky, but there is kind of a, I know what you guys say. You guys say low key. There's a low key flow to this right here, and it works really well. So see how this comes around, and see how these circles also start to like come around. So it has this like flow that's sort of, it's almost circular, and that part works also with the composition. There's open space, there's busy areas, there's straight lines, there's curved lines, there's kind of these geometric forms, but there's also this organic shape. So all the contrasts are there. Let's see, there's volume. I would have tried to add a little more volume on this side, but I do see how this balances. So um, there's volume here that makes it like a 3D piece, right? It goes from 2D to 3D. And I think maybe the only thing that this lacks is maybe the contrast between big and small. So in other words, you could have some super tiny pieces to, if you look at this, the openings here and these pieces and this piece are kind of all the same size. So this one, it might have benefited from just some tiny pieces. All right. And Jared, let's see, is Jared the last one? Let's take a look. Jared, no, there's a couple more. Yeah, two more. All right, now we're done. Okay, first of all, these kind of look good photographed on grass. Um, I don't know, it works for some reason. Okay, so it's very, very active. There's a lot going on. And for me personally, it's a bit busy, but I know that like uh, some people like that, and so it's not something I downgrade for in terms of like composition. And you could make the argument that it's uh, it's festive. You know, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of stuff going on, there's a lot of work put into this. Um, but one of the contrasts that I was trying to get you guys to think about was opening some space, right? So giving your eye a little bit of an area to rest is can be helpful, right? In this, especially in this assignment, part of the idea is to like give your viewers an eye a place to rest. Um, and then what that does is, like, if you were to open up a little space here in the middle, um, some of these areas that have this natural flow, like from here, if you look at this, the central area, like this line and this line, there's kind of a natural flow that goes just above the horizon from left to right or right to left. And that flow gets interrupted. See, even this shape starts to come around, and even this shape is sort of like bearing down into this like flow right here. But it gets blocked off by these pieces. So I might, if I were editing this, and that's the advantage of being face to face, is like I'll walk around and I'll be like, just start taking pieces out, right? So I would take out all of these shapes here in the middle and just leave this whole section. I might leave that space, I mean that piece, but I might take out a bunch of light from everywhere in here. Just take it out so you have this whole open space in the middle, and that might help the flow a little bit. Also, there's not a lot of volume on this. There's pieces that are stacked, but they're kind of like um, stepped, and there's terraces. And so in order to create like um, better volume, there should be more areas like this where it comes straight down, right? And that gives you a little more depth and creates volume. And last, I think that's the last one. And then I don't know what happened here. Oh, okay. All right. So this is another really pleasant design. Oh, I like this part. This negative space here, let's just talk about what that does. So if you imagine this piece being filled in, let's see if we can see it from a different angle. I can kind of see it here. So what that does is, if you can imagine this was completely filled in, right? You would see that all the activity is kind of on this side. Like if I drew a line from here to here, most of the activity is kind of on the upper right half. But this piece shows a lot. I can see right here that there's a lot of volume missing. So I know how high, how many layers this is. So I know how deep this part is right here. And what that does is creates a negative space that's volumetric. This area is volumetric, and it balances out the whole thing. So that's why this one seems balanced, because it is. And it's because of this piece. So if we look at everything else, like the contrasts, I think you could consider this small or tiny compared to this bigger piece. So there's small, big, there's sort of low key straight lines, and there's a lot of curved lines, right? So there's contrast. I maybe would have made these perfectly square, but that's just a personal thing. That's not something I grade up or down on. So it has contrast. It has this big open area and these, but it also flows in a certain way. So this thing has everything. I did notice there's, and this is the hard part, right? Getting curves to like not snag like that. So there's a few like craftsmanship things, but in terms of volume and what I was looking for, and then making, if you look at it from this angle, there's, it doesn't feel like a 2D like flat design. You can definitely feel that this is it's a 3D object, right? So this is probably the most successful in terms of like getting volume in there. So that's good. Too much volume? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now I'm being picky. No, I think that's right. All right, so that's it. Did you guys have any questions or comments? So again, if you guys if you want to talk more about composition and design, then contact me, and we can go back and forth on email. It's easier if we sit down for a few minutes and meet online on Zoom, and then I can show you, and then I can sort of like mark stuff up, and you can see it in real time. All right, let me see. All right. So that's it for project 1. And I want to write down everybody that's here, because people have been missing, but then they don't write their summary. So I have 6 people. Okay, we're good. Okay, so let's go ahead and start on project 2, and that is wire bending. And so project 2 is, in a way, um, a continuation of project 1. So project 1 dealt with volume and mass, and project 2 deals with volume but no mass, right? Instead of mass, instead of like layers of solid material, what we're going to do is kind of imply a form. And the way you're going to start is through, I'll have you do an exercise, which I'll show you in a little bit. And that exercise is essentially a sphere, something round, made out of wire, a cube, and a pyramid. So you'll make 3 things. That's the exercise. I don't know how to explain it, but once a semester, someone will turn in the exercise as their project, and that's incorrect. So the exercise is something you do before you start the project. And while you're doing the exercise, you can kind of like think of what you might do for your project. One thing you can do is once your exercise is turned in, you can take the forms and reconfigure them into your project. So in other words, if there's if you do a sphere, if you want to integrate it into your if your project is, say, like a head of a cat or whatever, you can take your sphere and transform it into a cat head if you want to. But the exercise is separate. You turn in your exercise and then you start on your project, which is separate. Okay. So one thing to think about. I'm going to share a screen again, and we're going to look at some of the examples, and I think I have quite a few of them. So let's take a look. All right, and we want to go back, and we want to, what are we doing? Okay. Okay, we're on project 2, and oh, there's examples right here. Let's look at those first. All right, so the idea of this project, first of all, project 1 was non-figurative. In other words, no figures, no shoes, no cars, nothing you can put a noun on except for geometric, like squares and circles. Project 2 is the opposite. I want there to be some sort of figure, right? And make it interesting to you. Make it, it could be your pet, although cats are hard to do because they're furry and they don't give you good contour lines, right? And I'm going to talk quite a bit about contour lines and what they are. And but let's take a look at these. So this one's nice because the person used the wrinkles in an elephant's head and ears to use as contour lines. And you can really, I mean, it's a wall piece, but you can really feel how much 3D is in the head. So that works. Okay. So this is one of the few projects that I've actually bought from a student. I think I paid him $100 for this. And the reason is because it's a perfect example of volume, right? And the contour lines are absolutely spot on. And the wrinkles in the horns are like the lines, these striations may make good contour lines. Um, I'm also a lifelong Rams fan, Los Angeles football Rams, and so I sort of just had to have this, so I bought it. This is part of the exercise that you're doing. This is a sphere that a student did, and these exercises don't have to be complicated. And there's a few more that I'll show you in the project page. But that's all I'm looking for. Just something round, um, that's like a ball form, and that's enough wires to imply, a sphere. So it's perfectly good. This is a project somebody did at Pasadena, and what I liked was the horns. The horns are simple. This is what I'll refer to as a three-wire construction. The three-wire construction is the most efficient way to like articulate 3D, right? Because there's three wires, there's, you know, it gives you volume from every perspective that you're looking at this from, just about, right? When you have three wires. So I'll ask you to use like a three-wire form for just about everything. So if someone's like, can I do a flower? I'm like, yeah, but make the stem a three-wire construction. Okay. And anything that's sort of like roundish, you can do with, three or four wires. So even if I said do a broomstick, right, which is round, I would tell you to do a three-wire construction. Okay, here's the exercise. And this one, I show this one because the student was like completely cracked me up. Um, this student was from China, and as I described it, it almost was like she didn't understand what I was saying. I don't, I never got the feeling she like understood English that well, but I described it to her and she just kind of sat there, and then she left, went outside, had a cigarette, and then came back in and did this in about 20 minutes. Like she just like knocked it out. So she understood the assignment. I just couldn't tell, and um, was tenacious about it. Like it. So I asked her. I was like, "Have you worked with wire before?" And she's like, "Nope, never." But for some reason, she just took to it. And the other interesting thing was her first project, like the foam board, wasn't. It was rough. It was a little bit rough in terms of. It was a good design, but it was rough in terms of craftsmanship. But you know, uh, whatever led to that was translated very well into this project. So what I see is a lot is people are either really like good at working with foam board, and or they're good at working with wire because it's a little easier to manipulate. Um, it does require a bit more hand strength, but some people like it more than foam board. Some people like foam board more. The ones that I really like pay attention to are the people that they like all the processes. Like they're drawn to different processes. Like they like the foam board, they like the wire, they like the paper folding, they like the final project, which is an assembly of all kinds of stuff. So then I start to think, oh, this person's that thinks and works in 3D very comfortably, and then I start to think, oh, this could be like this person's probably going to be a designer or a sculptor or something 3D related. Uh, this is a good example. This guy was so funny. So he Vitaly is from Moscow, and he's very sweet. And so he asked me like, "Can I make Glock?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "I have Glock. Can I make Glock?" And I was like, "Yeah, you want to make it? Go ahead." And so he made this thing, and if you know this guy, I half expected it to actually shoot bullets out, but what I liked about it, first of all, the clip clicks into the handle right here. So what I liked about it is the three layers of density, right? So the bullets those are not implied. That's actually volumetric. That's actually an enclosed volume. In other words, they're hollow, but most of the wire is you can see, and it's over the 50% threshold, right? So there's more wire than open space, and while you don't want to do that the whole project because this is about implied volume, it's a nice contrast. And this chamber in the middle, I don't know what that's called. I guess it's chamber. Um, is it has another. It's about right. It has another layer of implied, but it's kind of medium compared to the rest of the gun. It's a little bent up because I carry this. He gave it to me. I carry this from school to school, so it's a little bit bent up. But you see, like this kind of loosely implied um, gun form, and then the chamber is medium implied, and then these are like super dense. So altogether, it makes a really successful composition. Okay, so one of the things that I'll talk about are things that are difficult to do, and doing a hand or doing a human figure is very difficult to do if you've never done this project before. And this one's good because remember I was talking about the 3-wire and 4-wire construction. Each finger is a 4-wire construction, right? There's 2 wires that both go up and down. And what happened here is the contour line, also the profile is perfect all the way around this hand, right? So this is somebody that's had a lot of drawing experience to begin with. So they were able to match these contour lines to really make it feel like a hand. But terrible. What I would recommend is that you pick something. This is a car, this is a Mini Cooper. Pick something that has lots of contour lines already, so then it's easy for you to follow. So a car, a shoe, uh, you know, something, a bridge, something with a lot of lines like this, it's already given you where the contour lines are, and it's easier to follow. So this was a really nice form. It has this. The wheels are 3D. The whole form is 3D. And what's good about this is that it's not so busy. That's what I was going to say about this one up here. It's not so busy that it sort of distracts from the form. This one has a lot of arbitrary lines that don't really exist in a skull. So there's some successful areas, but then there's areas that don't really make sense because there's too many wires, right? So in this case, there's plenty of um, there's wire in the background, but there's not so much wire that it blocks your view from the rest of it. So that's why this is successful. All right, give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. This this was one of my favorites, and it's not so much about it. I mean, it is about the piece, but this is about how um, is this is kind of about stereotyping, and I think I try my best not to stereotype, but or go into these with prejudice. But this student um, came into the semester, and I swear, I thought she was either hungover or drunk, and definitely like came in high heels and a skirt and like a party girl. And the first project, she just like completely botched it, and I don't even think she finished it. And so going into this project, I really had my doubts about what she was going to do. But and this person was maybe 95 pounds, like tiny. And so I thought, oh, maybe the wire bending is going to be a little difficult, just in terms of like hand strength. And was I wrong? This person sat down and just attacked this assignment, I like with such tenacity, and she started with the wings first. And so I was like, hey, it needs to be volume. She's like, there's going to be volume, and was totally confident in her wire bending skills. And she did say that she had done some project like this before, but it there wasn't like a tremendous. It wasn't something she did for a living or anything. The volume came right here in the body of this bird, and so um, she said that after watching the uh, Masters of Modern Design, the film that I have assigned, um, she saw Ruth Asawa's baskets that sort of look like this, and was able to come up with a system of wiring these together that worked for the whole project. So you'll see the body of this and parts of the wings are directly taken from Ruth Asawa's, and you'll see Ruth Asawa's um, sculpture in the film that's assigned. Anyway, that taught me not to guess at what students could do. This is not a part of the project. This is from like the local Buy Nothing program, but you can see the different levels of implied volume. This has more, this has less. But if you think about the exercise that I'm going to have you do, this is plenty. This is all you really need to articulate. So if you imagine two of these like stacked on top of each other to make a round form, that's plenty of contour lines. And if you want to get wild, you can do a lot here, and you can really tell, you can really feel like the 3D part of it. So you're welcome to do that, and that's kind of what happened here. So those are examples. And what time are we at? We're an hour in. Okay, so what I want to do now is I need about 5 minutes. I need to take a little break. And I understand what it takes to listen to me for like 2 hours. So let's take a break and come back in 10 minutes. And then what we'll do is I'll give you a quick demo on how to bend wire. There's also a video that I made that's available that you can watch. And then we'll go over the quiz for project two, and then that'll be it. Okay, so let's come back at 9:10. Okay? Okay. Okay, dope. Here we are. And April, is uh is Espa, you like K-pop? And Espa's your group? I'm I told you about my wife who's did I tell you about my wife who's BTS? She's Army. She's one of the Army. And she's serious about it. She's not she's not a multi. It's just BTS. And and she takes it so seriously. So hours every day. She'll come home from work and she gets online and she's got thousands of followers because she's like ranking up in the BTS infrastructure, whatever that is, And what's it's they're scary. They're a scary group because there's literally like a billion of them, and they're when they organize and they decide to do something, they're unstoppable. There's so many of them, right? That uh, so anyway, um, I sort of went down the rabbit hole a little bit. Um, there's there's a group called XG. Do you know them? So XG, I like. Um, I don't really like K-pop or whatever XG is called, but I mean, I like it, but it's not my kind of music. I don't listen to it. I don't watch it because of the music, but it's more of like the personality types. Anyway, um, Kokona is my bias. Do you know her? And and the reason is because I think my algorithm is sort of like Asians breaking stereotypes. It's really like everybody that breaks stereotypes. That's my algorithm. And so, of course, like Kokona came up because she's like super ridiculously confident, and super talented. They're all like ridiculously like talented. But her in particular, I feel like it's super positive for Japanese women in Japan, to see somebody with like that kind of like swag and confidence. And every girl in Japan I know sees that, and not that they want to be like that, but that confidence is sort of, I think, is just like completely helpful because in Japan, the women are, uh, it's a total male dominated society, right? In Japan and also Korea. So these characters like Kokona, actually the whole group they're pretty confident, but um, uh, there's like if you guys know Otani and Otani the baseball player, and there's the best boxer right now is also from Japan. So all these and it's not to like the idea isn't to like prove that like Japanese are superior in sports, but the the idea is that if everybody sort of has the same diet and culture, everybody ends up about the same. I mean, um, So these guys that like break stereo, anyway, got a little sideways, but that's how I know about Espa. And I also like Le Seraphim, uh, but I'm gonna see XG in 2 weeks. So, uh, and I'm forcing my army wife to go, and she's like, I'm not gonna wear an XG shirt. I'm like whatever, I don't care. Okay, back to wire bending. Um, what I want to show you guys now is just the project page and some of the examples of um, the exercises that I want you guys to do. So if you think about the next 3 weeks, the first week I'll have you go through the checklist. And so you'll watch the film. You don't have to do anything. You're here at the meeting, so you don't have to do a summary. And then the chat. I mean, not the chat, but the quiz for project 2. We're gonna basically take care of now. So the checklist is fairly minimal. You just you need to watch the film, write a summary, or no, take the quiz, and that's pretty much it for this week. So there's not a lot to do, but you can go ahead and get started on your project and especially your exercise. So let's take a look at that. By the way, I'll have your project 1 graded um, by tomorrow morning at the latest. I'll probably have them graded by this afternoon, but just so you know. Okay, what am I doing here? We are looking at the project page for. Oh, I didn't even talk about the materials yet, which is I need to get to. All right. So in this case, this person went way beyond uh, what she needed to do. All you have to do is a pyramid, a sphere, and a cube. And this person just sort of got way into it and just started, she was having fun and just started like making these. And so if you look at her sketches here, right here is the project that she decided to do, and that's it here. So what's good about this is that this is sort of I think like maybe a pyramid. I'm not sure. Maybe a Mayan pyramid. And what's good is that the lines all capture a contour. So a contour would be like the corner and the edge of a block, right? That would be the contour. If you put a line, like a decorative, like S shape in here, that wouldn't be a contour line necessarily, but you can still do it because it does create more implied volume, if that makes sense. So for the exercise, so in 2 weeks, so you have plenty of time, but in 2 weeks you have this due, and your checklist, 3 shapes. Of course, what I recommend is starting early, right? In other words, this project, I'm giving you a lot of time, but that time is to get used to working with the material because it's not easy. And if you miss the first part, like how to bend wire, the project will be a nightmare. You'll struggle with it. People that are not here at the meeting, that don't see this part or don't watch the video, you'll see how they struggle with the process, because it's very important to get the very first part down. Um, and this little demo that I'll show you, there's also a video that I made, but I want to show you kind of in person, not in person, but in front of you, how to do the most simplest cutting and connection. Let's take a look at the material itself. Okay, so that's it. Um, Looks like that. And um, if you, where are we? We're in Citrus. If you guys get into Pasadena, if you go to Ganalls, I saw that they had this very same thing for $4. So I think it's probably not worth the trip. But if you happen to be in Pasadena, um, on Colorado, then you can pick this up for like $3 or $4 at Ganalls Lumber, and I'll type that into the chat in a minute. Okay, so that's the wire that you want to use. Uh-oh. Oh, there it is. And this is the set of pliers that you should pick up. If you have pliers already, that's fine. Those are wire cutters, those are regular pliers, and those are the needle nose pliers. This is the most important one, and I'll show you why uh, once I get started um, with the little demo. And so that's the materials, and this is the exercise. Do you guys have any questions so far about the assignment? Okay, so let's keep going. One of the things that's optional is uh, just a piece of white artboard, or um, just a heavy piece of paper. I'll show you the one I have here, and gloves. So this can be hard on your hands, especially if you're not used to working with pliers and wire and stuff. And the wire gets a little pokey, and there's a tendency to want to bend the wire with your fingers and stuff, which is totally, you're okay to do. You're supposed to do it, but it can get a little bit hard on your fingers. So I recommend gloves, and I didn't bring my pair, but any kind of work gloves is fine. There's gloves that are available at Home Depot that are sort of like um, cotton gloves, but they have the fingers are kind of dipped in rubber, so it gives you a grip, and those are ideal for um, this project. Okay, now I need to switch to, and let's see, anything on my desk. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. So this is just a piece of illustration paper, or illustration. This is not even illustration. It's just a kind of heavy white sheet of paper. Think like it's the same material that they would make an index card out of. So having a white background immediately helps with this project. Um, this is just a line that I drew. If you, like, for example, if you're making your cube and you want to make it out of singular pieces, what I did here is I just drew like a 6-inch line, and then what happens is I can measure every time I cut a piece, I can cut it to the same length. So it's kind of a template. And let me show you that. Uh-oh, here we go. So I'll get the wire, and it doesn't have to be exact, but just so that I have consistency in whatever I'm building, like I'll just do a bunch of the same length. Okay, I just need two. Oh, maybe I'll do a couple more. Excuse me. Okay. First little trick is I want to show you is how to straighten out the wire. So if you have like a wire like that that's kind of curved, the way to do it is to first of all straighten it out as much as you can just with your hand, and then I have this block of wood, but you can use sort of anything that's like big and flat. And what you do is you just take it and then you just roll it. You just roll it out and it straightens it out. Okay. So I'm not going to do that with all of these, but if you want like consistent straight pieces, that are the same length, then that's how you do it, and it's a good way it's a good sort of working habit, just to have a system in place. And what you'll find is that if you do a lot of these, if your project requires a lot of the same size piece, if you do them all at one time, it takes it just cuts down on the time you spend working, instead of going like, oh, I need this piece, and then you have to cut a piece and get set up and do another one. So if you do it all at one pass, it's definitely a good working plan. Okay, so this is the most important part. I'm going to connect this wire to this wire, and this connection, this one little loop, is critical to the whole project. You have to get this part and you have to master it before you even start, right? And what happens is when people don't figure out this part and they just get the wire and they try to loop it around, or um, uh, they'll try to tie it together in these big knots, then the time you spend on this just multiplies exponentially, right? So if you get this part down, um, it will help you immediately just to get started, okay? And this is how you do it. So you want to take your needle nose pliers, and my camera is a little sketchy because it goes in and out of focus, but let me see if I can show you this. But what you'll do is you'll take the very, very end of the wire, right? And you'll go to the very end of the pliers. So in the needle nose pliers, there's teeth. Yeah, see them? For a second. There's teeth, and you want to go to the very last tooth, so you're extended way out there at the very end of the wire. Now, this is the tricky part, sort of, but you're going to take your thumb and push down and twist like this so that you make a loop like that. All right. And if you can get that loop, you're almost there. All right. Okay. Now, this is the other part that's a little bit. So now I get my pliers and the grooves on the pliers, you can see those. You want to put, I'm going to flatten this out a little. You want to put the loop so that, let's see, that it extends up like this. This part's important because what you're going to try and do is you're going to crimp that wire. So you'll put the wire in here, and the reason that little part is that you're trying to crimp that wire down below so that it wraps around this wire, right? So I'll just, oops, I'll just squeeze. And that's it. So this you want to practice as you know, you might have a wire like this, and you know, connect it 5 or 10 times just to practice, right? So I'm gonna just add this wire on too. And once you practice, it shouldn't be any more than that. So that just takes a second to make a connection, but that's the connection that you have to have for this project. Okay? Okay. So another thing to think about is, I'm going to just take this apart. If you're trying to connect the wire in a corner, one thing you can do is, there's a couple ways to do it, but one way is to make your loop on both ends. All right, so I have a loop on both ends, and then connect them, and then crimp them both down. So I just did the same connection, but just at the corner, right? So it looks like that. So one thing that could possibly happen is when you have a corner like this, it could get loose really easy. You see how it's sort of like, it can be a little wobbly. And one thing you can do is to make sort of a crutch or a splint. And to do that, you take another wire and just bend it to about a 45 degree, right? So watch this. So I can put it right over, and one side I'll just twist it around so that it's like there, and then I'll do the same on the other side. I'll just twist it around so that it makes kind of a crutch. Like, then it's really firm. And remember, this is a wire drawing, so that line changes a little bit. And if you don't mind it, I don't mind it. But some people like just a simple clear line. So what you can do is, if you build your structure and you have these like little splints or crutches that like hold your thing together, what you can do is build your whole structure, and then you can take these out. So theoretically, once the whole thing's put together and it's a more stable structure, you can take out these kind of extra little things that hold it together so that your line is simpler and cleaner. You don't have to do that. It's sort of either way. One other thing is that in terms of holding your structure together while you work on it, everything's fair game. So uh, you can use tape, rubber bands, clamps, your roommate, like just to hold it stable, right? While you work on it, everything's fair game. And then at the very end, you can sort of take it apart and, you could take tape off and hopefully your structure is stable. Um, so those are a few ways. One other way is if you're just going wire to wire, end to end, you can simply just twist it. And if you twist it a little more with pliers, it's the kind of ribbon form doesn't is not so obvious, but that's a fairly secure connection, and that just took a second, right? So that's one way to connect wires like that, and that's the basic way. And what I like is when you guys come up with your own solutions to each problem. So you might have a situation where you're trying to connect two edges together, right? Uh, let's see, how would we do that? So um, let's do one more connection and that'll be that. So say you have two wires and you want to combine them together. Maybe you have a square and another square, and you want to join the edges of the squares together so that they can form a cube. Um, you can basically make something like a clip where you just you bend another loop like that. This time you might leave a little space because there's two wires going in there, but you'll put the two wires together, put them through your loop, and then you can crimp them down, and then so I just made just kind of a little loop that would hold those two lines together, and I'd probably put one over here as well, and then the two wires would just stay together. If that makes sense. Okay. Okay. So that's it. So, oh, so what I want you guys to know about this project is that the beginning is really hard. And if you've never worked with wire or pliers before, it's going to be a little bit daunting in the beginning. But if you can just get that first connection down, um, and most people will get it after a few minutes. But if you can get that first part down, then it makes a huge like difference starting the project. What you don't want to do is start the project from just like, oh, um, you know, like how you might like wire your muffler to your car. It's a different kind of construction. And the other thing I wanted to say about this is that learning this, like you to use wire like this is uh, it's so I think it just ups your handiness level by a lot, right? So if you're able to like work with wire, all of a sudden it's like, oh, this board is loose, let me just wire this, or my muffler is loose, let me wire this. Or if you can get good with wire, it just makes you a handier person. And I keep wire everywhere because I'm constantly using it for all kinds of different things. So It's it's something useful, uh, but what I want you guys to focus on in this project is to think about this as a drawing, like you're drawing in space, right? And that's why we're using a black wire. And, you know, in my case, I'm using a white background. And that's to make it look like a pencil drawing or a pen drawing. And the black wire is that gauge and that color to emulate a pencil mark. So if you bought wire and it's aluminum wire, like a lighter color, it's not going to work the same way. And actually, there's wire that's maybe a little easier to bend, but it gets difficult when you try to connect it. And then there's like some wire that's galvanized wire, which is a nightmare to bend. So um, you'll have a lot of trouble bending the wire. And just also remember that this project, like a wire drawing out of this exact material, it's a classic. Like my teacher did it, his teacher did. It's been a project, since like Bauhaus and those early design. It's been a design project forever and ever. And the reason is because it's very useful in conceptualizing a single dimension, like a line is 1D. So we're going from 1D to 3D, right? So it's something that's just it's a piece of wire can be like 1D, and then you curve it, and then it's 2D. And so the if you think about all of my projects, they all go from like 2D to 3D somehow. And this actually goes from 1D to 3D. So think about this. One of the things you'll have to think about in terms of the aesthetics is what happens when your lines cross over each other, right? Because you're seeing this in 3D. And then let's end with this. Like, what are good things to like use as a subject, and what are difficult? So, something that's difficult is something without clear contour lines, like a jellyfish, right? It's hard to kind of see where the contour lines are. You could do a jellyfish if you're really, really like good with the three wire construction, you could make the things, but it's actually the bell part of it, the big part of it, the body. There's not many contour lines to to use. So it's the same with the dolphin. Dolphin's very smooth, right? And so there's not a lot of good contour lines unless you made them up, right? So if you think about a fish, however, or something with scales, then those can be contour lines, right? And those, when you use the contour lines, the more contour lines you use, the more you'll articulate the implied volume, right? So jellyfish are hard, dolphins hard, whales kind of hard, cats hard because they're so furry, they hide contour lines, right? Unless it's like a calico, and it has like shapes and stuff, then it's doable, right? Or if you make like tiger stripes, then it can kind of work as contour lines. But those are things that are difficult. A human hand is difficult probably because it's fairly small for what you're working with, right? An ideal size for your projects is going to be roughly like a football or half a loaf of bread, something like that size. And think about it this way: if you get smaller than that, like a hand, um, it gets very, very hard to bend the wire that close together, right? And if you get too big, then the wire sort of like collapses in on itself. It makes it sort of floppy. So the ideal, like the pro size is, you know, 8 inches, 10 inches, like this, about the size of a football, American football. I guess a soccer ball. Soccer ball is getting a little big. Okay. So that's the idea. Now, things that are good to do, like that I recommend, and that have worked out really well. Someone, so first of all, bird, right? Because the feathers are all contour lines. Uh, Cars are good. Someone did a fantastic turntable, right? There's a lot of like contour lines on there, and the record itself was just like wire, like in a dish, like in a plate, and so that worked out well. There's been a successful bridge. Bridges are nice because the lines are there for you already. Someone tried to do the Eiffel Tower, but that was hard because of the detail, right? You could do a simplified Eiffel Tower, and that has plenty of like volume and contour lines, right? And what else could you do? Instruments are awesome. Oh, insects. Insects have um, different, like insects have two or three. What is it? Three. So they have a head, they have a body. All of this can be like the sphere, some version of the sphere that you make. And what's good about the wire is it makes really, really good like insect claws, right? And spikes and stuff. So it works really well for that. A pineapple would be good, right? All those like shapes can make all those little forms make a contour lines. Uh, what would be harder would be a watermelon, right? There's no like there's not really clear contour lines. I suppose you could make them up, um, but you get the point, right? So stuff that has lines already, contour lines already, are much easier. So someone made one of those fans, like an electric fan, and it actually turned, but the cage itself was a good um, cage itself was a good implied volume. I forgot to go over the quiz. Let's go over the quiz and we'll be done. Okay. Okay. This was a full meeting. Um, and we're on project 2. Okay, so write these down. Quiz project 2, implied volume. That's us. And then we'll be done. I almost forgot the quiz. That would have been awful. All right. What type of wire is required for this project? Baling wire, tie wire, rebar wire. They're all synonyms. It's the same wire. What is the best way to get wire for this project? Go to Home Depot and look for the oldest guy you can find and ask him for rebar wire. That's correct. That's good life advice. If you go to Home Depot, just look for the oldest guy there. It's good advice, trust me. Order it online. Um, Go to any Ace Hardware because they are most knowledgeable. I think it's B and C. Although A is correct too. Maybe I should have put all of the above. All right. I think B and C I think that's correct. What is a contour line? Contour line is a line that signifies the outside of a form. It is often an outline. Line for shading, no. Quickest way to from point A to point B? No. All curved lines are contour lines? No. So that one's the first one. A. What is the best example of implied volume? Empty shopping cart, right? If you think about the cage and the space that it occupies, that's a good example of an implied volume. Just like the empty baskets of empty wire baskets, same thing. Someone who pretends to turn up the volume. No. It's a good sketch. It's a good idea to sketch out your project before you start. That's true. What some people do is on their white piece of paper, they'll have several sketches and they'll use it as a template. And that's a really good idea. What should you do if you don't have the hand strength for this project? Stick with it because this is exactly what you need to be working on if your hands aren't strong enough. So the other little tip is that people will buy like tiny little pliers thinking it's going to be easier to use tiny pliers, and it's just the opposite. If you get bigger pliers and use the bigger size needle nose pliers, it actually gives you more leverage and it's much easier to use. How big should the project be? We just talked about it. Size of football. I should use tape and rubber bands to hold my wires in place while I work with them? Sure. I need to rewrite these. Can I hang these or build a pedestal for them? You can, and I like it because then you're sort of like conceptualizing like the display element, which is important. I should paint this project and perhaps add some feathers. False. It's just a wire drawing. Don't add it, don't paint it, right? The next two projects you can paint and add feathers, but the first two projects you can't add anything. It's just the materials itself. And so we'll submit, and we did it, I think. Yep, okay, that's good. And we're done. All right. Let me just leave you with this, and that is in the beginning, if you have any trouble at all bending wire, Kitty, I see your kid. That's you have an orange. I have a similar kitty. Chloe, what's your cat's name?
Virgo.
Oh, that's Virgo. Oh, okay. I saw that in the introduction. Uh, are you also a Virgo? Uh, I remember because I'm a Virgo. So all right. Sidetracked. All right. So hi Virgo. Um, is there any so it's important to if you have any trouble in the beginning to get with me, because if you have trouble in the beginning, it's going to delay the whole thing. And that's why the checklist is simple, right? You're done with this part. You're done. You have the answers for the Project 2 quiz. All you have to do is watch Masters of Modern Design and do the quiz, which should be easy if you watch it. And then you're on to your exercise, right? So in a way, you have basically like 2 weeks to get this exercise done. I've had students that have watched the film, done the exercise on the very first day, today, right? So they finish it and then they're on to the projects. And then that gives them 3 full weeks to fully articulate their projects, right? So this is a project that it's important to get the first part down and then you're off and running. Okay, does everybody understand? Okay, that's it. If there's no questions, then keep in touch, and then I'll see you in 3 weeks. Okay? Okay. Have a good day. See you, Jess.